We've all dealt with toxic people, the ones who drain your energy, twist your words, and push your buttons just to see you react. Most people try to argue back, defend themselves, or explain their side, but that only fuels the fire. The truth is, you don't have to fight toxic people. You just have to do one simple thing, and they'll back off for good. Toxic people thrive on reaction because it's the only real power they have. They don't come into your life to build, to support, or to encourage growth. They come to drain, to twist, and to pull you into their storm. Every sarcastic remark, every guilt trip, every jab or passive-aggressive comment they throw at you, it's bait. And the moment you bite, they win. Your reaction, whether it's anger, frustration, or even trying to explain yourself, becomes a fuel. It tells them, I got to you, I have control. And control is exactly what they're after. They don't necessarily care if you like them. What matters to them is that they can steer your emotions and keep you unsettled. That way you're always on defense, always proving, always explaining, always caught in the web they spin. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from a toxic exchange feeling exhausted, replaying the conversation in your head, wishing you had said something different? That's the cycle. They don't need to win the argument with logic or facts. They win by taking your peace. And the more you react, the more they learn exactly which buttons to push. They study your weaknesses, your triggers, and your insecurities because those are their tools. They know if they can get under your skin, they don't have to overpower you physically or outsmart you intellectually. They just have to throw you off balance emotionally. That's why your silence or calmness feels so threatening to them. When you stop reacting, when you refuse to be pulled into their chaos, it starves them of the very thing they thrive on. They want drama, but you're not giving it. They want an explosion, but you're staying steady. They want you to chase after their approval or bend under their criticism, but you're not moving. Suddenly, the game doesn't work anymore. Suddenly, they're left holding the bait, and you've walked away without biting. And that's when you begin to see the truth their power was never real. It only existed as long as you handed it over through your reactions. When you stop giving that, you don't just take away their control, you take back your own. Boundaries are non-negotiable because they define how others are allowed to treat you, and toxic people test them more than anyone else. A toxic person doesn't respect limits naturally. In fact, they see limits as challenges to break through. They push, they prod, they manipulate, because what they really want is access. Access to your time, your energy, your emotions, and sometimes even your resources. If you don't set clear boundaries, they will keep taking until there's nothing left. That's why boundaries aren't just suggestions. They're lines that protect your mental and emotional space. They say, this is where I end, and you begin. Without them, you'll find yourself constantly pulled into arguments, drama, and situations you never wanted to be part of. When you make boundaries clear, you stop leaving things open to interpretation. Toxic people thrive in the gray area where they can twist your words and claim they didn't know what you meant. But when you clearly state what you will and won't tolerate, there's no room for excuses. It doesn't have to be loud or aggressive. It can be as simple as, I won't continue this conversation if you raise your voice, or I'm not available after this time. These simple, direct statements take the power away from their manipulation because you're not playing their game, you're laying out your terms. The hardest part about boundaries isn't setting them, it's holding them. Toxic people will test you again and again to see if you're serious. They might get angry, guilt trip you, or try to make you feel selfish for saying no. That's the trap. If they can make you feel bad, you'll back down and the boundary will collapse. But when you stay firm, when you hold the line, no matter how uncomfortable it gets, that's when they realize the rules have changed. You're no longer someone they can walk over. You're no longer someone who bends at the first sign of pressure. Boundaries show them that you value yourself enough to protect your peace, and once they understand that those boundaries are not up for debate, they have no choice but to face the reality that their access to you has limits. Don't explain, don't defend, because the moment you start over-explaining yourself to a toxic person, you hand them the very tool they need to twist your words against you. Toxic people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to find loopholes, to argue, to spin your reasoning back on you in a way that makes you doubt yourself. When you fall into the trap of explaining why you said no, why you feel a certain way, or why you made a decision, you're giving them ammunition. They'll pick apart your sentences, exaggerate your tone, and suddenly, the entire focus shifts from the actual issue to whether or not your explanation was good enough. That's the game, and if you're explaining, you're already losing because toxic people don't need clarity, they need control. Defending yourself might feel natural because you want to prove your side, you want to show that you're not in the wrong. But with a toxic person, defending yourself doesn't end the conflict, it extends it. It keeps you stuck in their loop, going back and forth, trying to justify your choices. Every defense becomes another opening for them to question you, to accuse you, to plant seeds of doubt. You start second, guessing yourself, wondering if maybe they're right, and that's exactly what they want. The more they can get you tangled in defending, the less confident you feel in your own boundaries and decisions. This is why short, clear responses carry so much power. When you simply say, "No, that doesn't work for me," and leave it there, you deny them the ability to twist your words. When you say, "I disagree," without adding an essay-length explanation, you keep control of the situation. Toxic people can't work with silence. They can't work with firm, direct responses that don't give them something to chew on. And as uncomfortable as it feels to not explain yourself, that discomfort is actually where your strength grows. You learn to stand by your words without needing validation, without needing their approval, without needing to prove that you're right. The less you explain, the less room they have to pull you into their chaos, and the more they realize that their usual tactics won't work on you anymore. Short, firm responses end arguments because they strip away the drama that toxic people are looking for. When someone thrives on conflict, they don't just want to state their point. They want a long, drawn-out battle where emotions flare and voices rise. They want to trap you into circles of explanation, justification, and defense, because the longer you stay in the conversation, the more opportunities they have to twist your words and wear you down. A toxic person doesn't get satisfaction from a quick exchange. They want the endless back and forth that leaves you exhausted. That's why short, clear statements cut through all of it. A simple, "I disagree," shuts down what could have been a 30-minute argument. A calm, "That doesn't work for me," closes the door before they even get the chance to push further. It feels unnatural at first, because most of us are conditioned to soften our answers, to explain our reasoning, or to try and smooth things over. But with toxic people, soft answers and explanations only open the door wider. They don't hear your explanation as kindness, they hear it as opportunity. Every extra word is an invitation for them to debate, to challenge, or to guilt trip you into changing your stance. That's why keeping it short and firm is not about being rude. It's about protecting your energy. It's about understanding that your time, your peace, and your boundaries are worth more than a never-ending conversation that goes nowhere. The power in short responses is also in the delivery. It's not about shouting or being aggressive. In fact, the quieter and calmer your tone, the stronger the statement becomes. A toxic person expects resistance. They expect you to argue back. So when you don't rise to the bait, when you simply state your boundary and stop, it throws them off balance. They don't know how to keep the fight alive without your participation. Over time, they start to realize that pushing harder won't get them what they want because you're not going to play the game. Short, firm responses train toxic people to understand that there's no reward in dragging you into conflict, no matter how much they try to provoke it. Detach emotionally because toxic people rely on your feelings to control the situation. They know that if they can get you upset, offended, or anxious, they've already shifted the balance of power in their favor. They thrive on seeing you worked up because your emotional reaction gives them both attention and leverage. The moment you get angry, they point to your anger as proof that you're the problem. The moment you get defensive, they twist your words into something you never meant. And the moment you show that they've hurt you, they feel validated because it means they've gotten under your skin. This is why emotional detachment is such a powerful tool. It takes away the very thing they're reaching for. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring altogether. It means you stop allowing their behavior to dictate how you feel. You create a space between their actions and your reactions, a pause where you decide how much power you're going to give them over your emotions. Toxic people count on you reacting instantly without thinking so they can pull you into their cycle of conflict. But when you step back, breathe, and choose not to engage emotionally, you make it clear that their behavior doesn't have the hold on you they thought it did. You take away the satisfaction of seeing you flustered or upset, and instead you remain steady, which makes them lose interest in the game. This kind of detachment also protects your peace. It keeps you from carrying their negativity long after the conversation is over. Instead of replaying the argument in your head or questioning yourself, you can remind yourself that their words are a reflection of them, not you. Emotional detachment acts like a shield, filtering out the chaos they throw at you so that it doesn't sink into your spirit. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice to stay calm when someone is deliberately pushing your buttons. But the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes to watch their behavior without absorbing it. You begin to see their tactics clearly for what they are, attempts to provoke, not truths about you, and in that clarity, you find a calm that toxic people can't touch. Walk away when needed because sometimes the strongest response isn't a word at all, it's your absence. Toxic people want you locked in with them, stuck in their cycle of arguing, defending, and reacting because as long as you're standing there engaging, they still have access to your energy. They will push conversations past the point of reason, repeat the same accusations, and throw the same insults, all to keep you tied up in their chaos. When you walk away, you're not giving up, you're reclaiming your control. You're showing that you value your peace enough to remove yourself from a situation that only drains you. And what makes this powerful is that you're refusing to play their game by the only rules they know: endless conflict and constant tension. Walking away doesn't require anger or dramatic exits. In fact, it's most effective when it's calm and deliberate. A simple decision to step out of the room, to hang up the phone, or to stop replying to a string of toxic messages sends a louder message than arguing ever could. It shows that you no longer see their behavior as worthy of your time. The truth is, a toxic person expects resistance, because resistance keeps them engaged. But when you don't resist, when you simply remove yourself, they're left with nothing to fight against. And nothing frustrates someone who craves control more than realizing you won't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. The act of walking away also creates a boundary in real time. It's not just saying you won't tolerate certain behavior, it's showing it with action. Words can be twisted, but actions are undeniable. When you leave, you demonstrate that you won't stand there and absorb disrespect. You make it clear that if the conversation can't stay respectful, there will be no conversation at all. This takes away their leverage because they can't force you to stay and argue once you've already chosen to go. Over time, this consistent action teaches them that pushing your limits won't keep you around. It teaches them that if they want access to you, they'll have to change the way they engage because you won't stand in the fire just to keep the peace. Consistency is key because toxic people are always watching to see if you mean what you say. They don't just test your boundaries once, they test them over and over, looking for cracks, looking for the moment when you slip, because that's when they can step back in and take control again. If you tell them you won't tolerate a certain behavior, but then let it slide the next time it happens, they notice. If you say you're done with the argument, but then get pulled back and when they push harder, they notice. Every time you bend or break your own standard, you teach them that your limits are negotiable, and that's exactly what they want. Consistency is what proves you're serious, and it's the part most people struggle with because toxic people don't give up easily. They push harder when they feel their grip slipping, and if you're not consistent, you'll get dragged right back into the same patterns you're trying to break free from. Being consistent doesn't mean being perfect. It means being steady enough that they understand the rules won't change depending on your mood, your stress level, or their persistence. It means following through on the boundaries you set, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when they accuse you of being cold or uncaring, even when they try to guilt trip you into making an exception. Toxic people thrive on inconsistency because it gives them hope that if they push just one more time, you'll eventually cave. But when you remain firm every single time, the hope fades. They begin to understand that the old tactics won't work anymore. Consistency is also what builds your own strength. Every time you hold the line, you reinforce your self-respect. You remind yourself that your peace is worth protecting and that you don't have to explain, defend, or bend just to keep someone else comfortable. Over time, this steadiness changes the dynamic completely. Toxic people realize that the unpredictable reactions they counted on no longer exist, and instead of finding a way in, they run into the same wall over and over. That wall is your consistency, and it sends the message that no matter how much they push, the outcome will always be the same. Respect yourself first because every interaction you have teaches people how to treat you. If you don't hold yourself in high regard, toxic people can sense it immediately and they will use it against you. They look for hesitation, for self-doubt, for the smallest sign that you don't fully believe in your own worth, because that gives them room to manipulate, to control, and to push their agenda onto you. When you respect yourself, you send out a silent but undeniable signal that says you won't settle for disrespect, you won't shrink to make others comfortable, and you won't allow yourself to be treated as less than. That inner standard creates an outer shield, and toxic people feel it the moment they try to cross the line. Self-respect shows up in the way you speak to yourself, the choices you make, and the boundaries you set. If you constantly put yourself last, if you tolerate behavior that drains you, if you accept apologies without changed actions, you're teaching others that you're willing to be mistreated. But when you hold yourself to a higher standard, when you decide that your peace, your energy, and your well-being are not up for negotiation, you change the entire dynamic. Toxic people lose their grip because the tricks that once worked on you no longer land. They can't guilt you if you no longer believe their approval defines your worth. They can't intimidate you if you've already chosen to stand firm in your own value. The truth is, self-respect doesn't need to be announced, it's felt. It's in the calm way you say no without hesitation. It's in the steady way you walk away when someone crosses the line. It's in the choices you make daily that show you are serious about protecting your peace. Toxic people notice this. Even if they don't say it out loud, they feel the shift when their usual tactics fail, when the old ways of pulling you down no longer touch you. Respecting yourself first changes the rules of the relationship entirely because it removes the permission they once had to mistreat you. When you raise the standard for yourself, you raise the standard for everyone around you, and toxic people are forced to either step up or step out. At the end of the day, toxic people only stay where they're fed. They live off your reactions, your defenses, your explanations, your silence when you should have set boundaries, and your willingness to bend just to keep the peace. But the moment you stop playing their game, when you stay calm, when you protect your space, when you choose yourself first, they lose their grip. You don't have to fight them, fix them, or prove anything to them. You just have to stand firm in who you are. And once you do, the chaos stops finding you, because toxic people always back away from the one thing they can't control, your peace.